I felt my stomach drop through the floor as the words left Vincent's mouth. Time seemed to slow as I watched his lips curl into that smirk I'd grown to despise. We're restructuring commissions. Yours is now 1% instead of 10%. Bile rose in my throat. The $5.2 million deal I'd just closed, the largest in company history, would now earn me $52,000 instead of $520,000. The difference was life-changing. I'd already mentally spent that money, paying off my mom's medical bills, finally replacing my 12-year-old car, putting a down payment on a home after a decade of renting. All gone. Just like that. My name is Meredith Harlow, Mary to the few people I actually trust, and I'm 34 years old. Before I continue this story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and please subscribe if you want to hear more stories about what happens when corporate America pushes the wrong woman too far. I'd been at Nexus Acquisitions for nearly 6 years. 6 years of early mornings and missed birthdays. 6 years of canceling dates and therapy appointments to accommodate clients in different time zones. 6 years of proving myself in an industry where women were still treated like decorative accessories rather than driving forces. Nexus sold enterprise software solutions to major corporations, the kind of deals that take months, sometimes years, to close. The kind where a standard 10% commission could set you up for a good long while. I joined Nexus as an account manager after leaving a toxic startup, where my boss had taken credit for my work while simultaneously trying to sleep with me. The startup world was full of boys pretending to be visionaries while treating women like furniture. Corporate seemed safer, more structured. I was wrong. At Nexus, I clawed my way up from managing small accounts to becoming the top performer on our enterprise team. I worked harder than anyone, memorized industry specs other salespeople couldn't be bothered to learn, built real relationships with clients instead of treating them like walking dollar signs. When Selene Technologies appeared on our radar, everyone said they were untouchable. They were revolutionizing medical imaging with AI, and their CEO, Imani, was known for being brilliant but impossible to impress. Selene had chewed up and spat out sales teams from every one of our competitors. "Don't waste your time," Vincent had said. "Focus on the clients we can actually land." But I saw something in Selene that others missed. Their pain points weren't what everyone assumed. While other sales teams pitched them on cost saving and efficiency, I spent weeks researching their actual challenges, integration with legacy systems and HIPAA compliance across international boundaries. For 3 months, I practically lived Selene. I talked to their mid-level managers, their tech team, even befriended their administrative staff. I learned about their frustrations, their dreams for the company, the barriers preventing them from scaling globally. When I finally got my meeting with Imani, I didn't pitch. I presented solutions to problems she hadn't even shared publicly. I watched her face shift from skeptical, to curious, to genuinely impressed. "You actually understand what we're trying to do," she said, leaning forward. "That's refreshing." It took another 4 months of meetings, demonstrations, and contract negotiations. I worked 80-hour weeks, missed my brother's wedding, developed an ulcer that kept me up at night. But I did it. Selene signed a 5-year contract worth $5.2 million, the largest deal in Nexus's history. The morning after the contract was finalized, I floated into the office. People who'd never spoken to me were suddenly my best friends. The CFO sent a company-wide email congratulating me. My commission, my life-changing, debt-erasing, future-securing $520,000, would be paid out when Selene's first payment cleared, roughly 4 weeks away. That was yesterday. Today, Vincent called me into his office. As always, he was wearing a crisp blue shirt that matched his eyes that took credit for other people's work and lingered too long on junior staff's bodies at happy hours. "Mary, fantastic work with Selene." His voice oozed artificial warmth. "Truly exceptional. The executive team is beyond impressed." I smiled, waiting for the inevitable. With Vincent, there was always a but. "As you know, we're always evaluating our compensation structures to ensure they're aligned with market standards and our growth goals." He shuffled some papers, not making eye contact. "For deals exceeding $5 million, we're implementing a new tiered commission structure." That's when he said it. "Yours is now 1% instead of 10%. The room seemed to tilt. That wasn't in my contract," I managed to say, my voice distant, even to my own ears. "It's a company-wide policy change, effective immediately." He finally looked up, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Think about it. $52,000 is still a substantial commission. Most people here would kill for that kind of bonus. I sat perfectly still. Years of being socialized as a woman in America stopped me from flipping his desk or screaming in his face. Instead, I heard myself ask, was this planned before I closed Celine? Vincent cleared his throat. The executive team has been discussing it for some time. The timing is unfortunate, I know. Unfortunate. As if he'd accidentally stepped on my toe rather than stolen nearly $500,000 from me. Congratulations again on the new client, he said, dismissing me with that smirk. We're lucky to have you on the team. I nodded, stood up, and walked out without a word. My heels clicked against the hardwood floors as I made my way back to my desk, passing co-workers who had no idea I was imploding inside. I sat down, opened my laptop, and stared at my screen without seeing anything. They thought I would just take it. Because that's what women like me do, right? We smile and nod and say, thank you for the scraps. But here's what Vincent didn't know. I'd been planning my exit from Nexus for months. Selling enterprise software had taught me something crucial. The client relationship belongs to whoever nurtures it. Companies think they own the client. But clients follow people they trust. And Imani trusted me. 3 months earlier, I'd begun laying the groundwork for my own consulting firm. Nothing that violated my non-compete. Just basic business registration, website development, bank accounts. I'd called it Prism Solutions, specializing in exactly the kind of integration services companies like Celine needed. The plan had been to launch in about 6 months, after I'd saved enough from the Celine commission to cover startup costs and give myself a year of runway. Now, sitting at my desk with rage burning through my chest, I realized I needed to accelerate everything. I reached for my phone and texted Imani. Any chance you're free for coffee tomorrow? Need to discuss something important about your implementation. She replied within minutes. Morning. 7:30 a.m. at Corvus before my board meeting. I confirmed, then opened my laptop again, this time, with purpose. I wasn't just angry. I was calculating. The contract with Celine had been signed, but the implementation hadn't begun. The first payment wasn't scheduled for 4 weeks. That night, I didn't sleep. I reviewed my employment contract word by word. The non-compete was problematic, but not insurmountable. It prohibited me from soliciting Nexus clients for 12 months after leaving, but there was a crucial carve-out, for clients who approached me independently or with whom I had a pre-existing relationship outside of Nexus. I also reviewed Celine's contract with Nexus. The language was specific about deliverables and timelines, but vague about which individuals would provide the services. There was no guarantee that I would personally oversee their implementation. By morning, I had a plan. Imani was already at Corvus when I arrived, dressed impeccably as always, typing rapidly on her laptop. This better be important, she said without looking up. I've got board members flying in from Singapore in 2 hours. I sat down, my hands steady despite my racing heart. Nexus is planning to assign a junior team to your implementation, I said. I've been moved to a different division. This was a lie, but a necessary one. I watched her fingers freeze above her keyboard. That wasn't what we discussed, she said slowly, finally looking at me. I know. That's why I wanted to meet in person. I took a deep breath. I'm leaving Nexus. Today, actually. Her eyes narrowed. And you're telling me this why? Do you expect me to intervene with your management? No. I'm starting my own consulting firm, specializing in exactly what Celine needs. I passed her my newly printed business card. Your contract with Nexus has a 30-day cancellation clause with prorated fees. You haven't paid them anything yet. Imani picked up the card, studied it. This is highly irregular, Mary. So is Bait and Switch staffing on a $5.2 million contract. I held her gaze. You signed with Nexus because of me. Because I took the time to understand what Celine actually needs. Do you think anyone else there has that knowledge? She sighed, leaning back. What exactly are you proposing? Cancel with Nexus. Hire Prism. Hire me, for 15% less than what you agreed to pay them. You get the same service, save almost $800,000, and work directly with the person you trusted in the first place. And you get what? Revenge. I smiled thinly. I get to build something of my own instead of making other people rich. And yes, I get the satisfaction of knowing that Vincent Kaplan will have to explain to the executive team how he lost the biggest client in company history. Imani was quiet for a long moment, turning the business card over in her fingers. You know what I like about you, Mary? You're just as calculating as I am. She slipped the card into her jacket pocket. Send me a proposal by end of day. Make it irresistible to my board. I stood up from Corvus Coffee that morning with my heart pounding in my ears. For the first time in years, I felt something like power coursing through my veins. I wasn't just another woman swallowing her rage and carrying on. I was about to show Vincent exactly who he'd underestimated. I walked into Nexus at 9 a.m., sat at my desk, and typed up my resignation letter, 2 sentences. Please accept this as formal notice of my resignation, effective immediately. I will not be requiring a reference. I emailed it to HR, CCing Vincent. Then I drafted the proposal for Celine, my fingers flying across the keyboard with a clarity and purpose I hadn't felt in years. At 11:42 a.m., Vincent appeared at my desk, his face flushed red beneath his perfect haircut. What is this? He demanded, holding up his phone with my resignation email. I smiled up at him, the kind of smile I reserved for men who thought they were cleverer than they actually were. I believe it's self-explanatory. You can't just quit in the middle of onboarding our biggest client. Actually, I can. There's nothing in my contract requiring notice. I continued gathering my few personal items into a small box. And regarding Celine, well, I'm sure whoever you assign will do their best. His eyes narrowed. This is about the commission change. I stood up, box in hand. This is about knowing my worth, Vincent. Something Nexus clearly struggles with. If you think you can take Celine with you, think again. The non-compete is practically unenforceable in this state, as I'm sure legal will tell you. I stepped around him. But I'm not soliciting any Nexus clients. That would be unethical. Vincent followed me toward the exit, his voice rising. You'll regret this, Mary. No one walks away from an opportunity like Nexus. I stopped at the elevator, turning to face him one last time. That's where you're wrong. I'm not walking away from opportunity. I'm walking toward it. The elevator doors opened. As I stepped inside, I saw other employees watching, expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed admiration. I gave Vincent one last look. Congratulations on the new client, I said, echoing his words from yesterday as the doors closed between us. I walked out of Nexus headquarters that day with nothing but a cardboard box of desk plants and family photos, my laptop bag, and a fire in my chest that felt dangerously close to hope. 6 years of my life, left behind in 20 minutes. By the time I reached my apartment, I'd received 3 texts from coworkers. Not asking if I was okay, but fishing for gossip. Did you really quit? What happened with Vincent? Is it true you flipped him off in front of everyone? People love creating drama where there isn't any. The truth, that I'd maintained perfect composure while my insides were churning with fear and rage, wasn't exciting enough. I ignored them all and got to work. My apartment became command central. I pushed my couch against the wall and turned my dining table into a desk, covered with notebooks, my laptop, and endless cups of coffee. I had exactly 4 weeks of savings to live on before things would get desperate. 4 weeks to make this work. The proposal for Celine took me 14 hours straight. I didn't eat, barely went to the bathroom, just wrote and rewrote until every word was perfect. I outlined a 3-phase implementation plan that would save them money while delivering better results than what Nexus had promised. My hands were shaking when I finally hit send at 1:38 a.m. Sleep wouldn't come. I kept running calculations in my head. If Celine signed with me at the rate I'd proposed, I'd make more in 1 year than I would have from that commission, even the original 10%. But I'd have no safety net. No health insurance. No 401k. And one client, no matter how big, wasn't a sustainable business. My phone pinged at 6:15 a.m. Imani, board meeting in an hour. Your proposal is compelling. 2 questions. How do we know you can deliver without Nexus resources? What happens with our data security needs? I texted back immediately. 1. Nexus outsources implementation anyway, to contractors I've worked with for years. I've already spoken with 3 key specialists who are ready to join Prism. 2. I've partnered with Cybersecure for better protection than Nexus offered. Their CEO is meeting me for dinner tonight. This was another calculated lie. I hadn't spoken to anyone yet, but I knew exactly who to call. Imani sent back one word. Impressive. Then, 10 minutes later, sending contract to legal for review. Subject to their approval, we're moving forward with Prism. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried, for the first time since this whole mess started. Not sad tears. Not even happy ones. Relief. The kind that comes when you've been holding your breath for so long, you forgot what oxygen feels like. Then I got back to work. By noon, I'd called Raj Patel, the best systems architect I knew, who'd been doing contract work for Nexus while dreaming of going independent. He said yes before I even finished explaining. Then came Zoe Chen, a security specialist who'd been underutilized and underpaid at Cybersecure for years. She negotiated hard but agreed to join as a partner rather than an employee. Better for both of us at this stage. By evening, I had the beginnings of a real team. People who were brilliant at their jobs but, like me, had been overshadowed and undervalued. People with something to prove. What I didn't have yet was any word from Nexus. No angry calls from Vincent. No legal threats. Just silence. That changed the next morning. My phone rang at 7:20 a.m. unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. Meredith Harlow. I kept my voice neutral. Miss Harlow, this is Eleanor Westbrook, General Counsel for Nexus Acquisitions. Her voice was precisely what you'd expect from a corporate attorney. Measured, slightly bored, with an undercurrent of steel. I'm calling regarding some concerning information that's come to our attention. My heart rate doubled, but I didn't let it show in my voice. And what information would that be, Miss Westbrook? We've been informed that Selene Technologies is considering terminating their contract with Nexus, apparently after communication with you. Given your non-compete agreement, this raises serious legal concerns. I took a slow breath. This was expected. I had prepared for this. Miss Westbrook, I understand your position, but I haven't violated my non-compete. I haven't solicited any Nexus clients. If Selene is reconsidering their relationship with Nexus, perhaps you should ask Vincent why. We have documentation of your meeting with Imani the morning after you learned about your revised commission structure, she said, her voice carrying a hint of smugness. Now I felt a chill. Someone had seen us at Corvus. That meeting was at Ms. Imani's request, to discuss implementation concerns. I lied smoothly. As for any business she might do with my new consulting firm, that would fall under the pre-existing relationship exemption in Section 4.3 of my employment agreement. I knew Miss Imani professionally before joining Nexus. This was technically true. I'd met her once at a Women in Tech conference 3 years before she came to Selene. We'd exchanged business cards. In the legal world, that constituted a pre-existing professional relationship. Silence on the other end. I'd done my homework, better than they expected. Nevertheless, Eleanor finally continued, Nexus is prepared to take this matter to court if necessary. The timing is, at minimum, suspicious. I understand, I said calmly, and Nexus is certainly within its rights to pursue litigation, just as I'm within my rights to share with the court documentation of how my commission was retroactively slashed after landing the largest contract in company history. I'm sure that would make for interesting coverage in the industry press. Another long pause. Miss Harlow, perhaps there's a way to resolve the situation amicably. Would you be open to discussing terms? And there it was. They were scared. Not of losing the legal battle, which they might well win with their resources, but of the public relations nightmare. Tech companies already had reputation problems when it came to how they treated women. This would be gasoline on that fire. I'm always open to reasonable discussion, I said. My terms are simple. Nexus agrees not to pursue any legal action against me or my company, and I agree not to publicly discuss the circumstances of my departure. And Selene, she asked, is free to work with whatever vendor they choose. That's not something either of us can control. I could practically hear her calculating the risks. Finally, I'll present this to the executive team. Expect to hear from me by end of day. 3 hours later, a courier delivered a settlement agreement releasing me from my non-compete in exchange for my silence about the commission structure. I signed immediately. By the end of the week, Selene had officially terminated their contract with Nexus and signed with Prism Solutions. The first payment, $780,000 with the 15% discount I'd promised, hit my business account the following Monday. I thought I'd feel vindicated. Instead, I felt terrified. Now I actually had to deliver. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. I worked around the clock, building Prism while implementing Celine's systems. Raj, Zoe, and I operated out of my apartment until we could afford office space. I developed migraines from stress, lost 7 pounds I couldn't afford to lose, and forgot to call my mom on her birthday because I was troubleshooting code at 2 a.m. But slowly, miraculously, it started working. Celine's implementation went smoother than anyone expected. Imani, never one to give praise easily, told me our team accomplished in 3 months what would have taken Nexus 6. Because we were smaller and more focused, we could adapt quickly to their changing needs. Word spread. When you deliver for a company like Celine, other companies notice. 4 months after leaving Nexus, we landed our second client. 5 months after, our third and fourth. By the 6-month mark, we had 7 clients and a real office with 5 full-time employees and a network of specialists we brought in as needed. I finally started sleeping more than 4 hours a night. I hadn't heard anything about Vincent or Nexus, until Madison, my former cubicle neighbor, asked me to meet for drinks. We met at a quiet bar downtown. Madison looked exactly the same, but I barely recognized myself in the restroom mirror. More confident posture, expensive blouse instead of clearance rack finds, hair finally professionally cut after months of neglect. "So," Madison said after we'd ordered, "you probably haven't heard." "Heard what?" "Vincent got fired last week." I nearly choked on my drink. "What? Why?" Madison leaned forward, clearly enjoying being the bearer of dramatic news. "After you left with Celine, he promised the executive team he'd replace that revenue within 6 months. Kept telling everyone he had big deals in the pipeline. Meanwhile, 3 more enterprise clients followed you out the door." I shook my head. "I didn't poach those clients." "No, but their contracts were up for renewal, and they'd worked with you before. They didn't even consider renewing with Nexus." She sipped her wine. "Anyway, the 6-month mark came, and Vincent had nothing. Word is they're down almost $8 million in projected annual revenue." I sat back, processing this. I'd been so focused on building Prism that I hadn't thought about the impact on Nexus. "How's morale?" "Terrible. They slashed the commission structure for everyone, not just you. 4 more salespeople have quit. Oh, and they tried to recruit me to take over your accounts." She grinned. "I told them I was joining Prism instead." My eyes widened. "You're what?" "If the offer still stands. Your LinkedIn post said you were hiring account managers." I found myself laughing, genuine, belly-deep laughter that felt foreign after months of stress. "The offer definitely stands." As we clinked glasses to seal the deal, my phone buzzed with a text. "Unknown number. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. It's Vincent. Can we talk? I've got a business proposition." I showed Madison the text. Her eyes went wide. "Are you going to respond?" I thought about it for a long moment. About all the nights I'd lain awake thinking of clever, cutting things I wished I'd said to him. About the satisfaction I'd imagined feeling at his downfall. But looking at his text now, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not vindication. Just emptiness, like looking at an old scar that no longer hurts. I put my phone away without responding. "Not worth my time. I've started my own consulting firm and would value your advice. Maybe we could partner on some projects. Let's put the past behind us." I almost laughed out loud. The audacity of men will never cease to amaze me. After everything, he genuinely thought I might help him. I wrote back a single line. "I don't think our commission structures would be compatible." Then I blocked him. 1 year to the day after I walked out of Nexus, Prism Solutions moved into our new offices, the entire 10th floor of a downtown building, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the river. We had 28 employees, 17 clients, and had just closed our first $10 million contract. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone in my corner office, looking out at the city lights. My phone pinged with a text from Imani. "Heard about the Meridian contract. Impressive. You should be proud." I wrote back. "I'm learning from the best." She responded with a rare emoji, a simple thumbs up. That, coming from her, felt like a standing ovation. I leaned back in my chair, a chair I'd picked out myself, for my company, and finally let myself feel it all. the fear, the exhaustion, the wild, improbable triumph. What happened with Nexus wasn't really about the money. It was about being seen, valued, recognized for what I'd built, rather than having it taken from me. In trying to save themselves a few $100,000, they'd lost millions, and launched their biggest competition. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, as I was leaving the office, I passed the wall where we'd hung our company values. The first one read, "Fair compensation reflects real value." Below it was our commission structure, transparent, equitable, and set in stone. Vincent's parting gift to me, it turned out, wasn't just freedom from Nexus, it was clarity. Clarity about the kind of leader I wanted to be. The kind who remembers what it feels like to be undervalued. The kind who builds others up, rather than standing on their backs. The kind who knows that true success isn't measured by how much you take, but by how much you create. Looking back now, I sometimes wonder if I should thank him. In trying to minimize me, he accidentally set me free. But I think I'll save that thank you note for another lifetime. Have you ever had a moment where someone underestimated you, and it became your greatest motivation? Or have you ever walked away from something secure to build something that truly reflected your values? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you've ever found yourself in a situation where you're not being valued, whether at work, in a relationship, or anywhere else, remember this. Sometimes, the greatest act of self-respect is simply walking away and building something better. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to hear more and share it with someone who might need a reminder of their own worth today.